The steel was cold. He knelt in the dirt, the beam of his flashlight cutting the darkness, resting on a heavy padlock. This wasn't supposed to be here. Deep in the woods, far from any marked trail, he was standing on top of a buried box, a place built to hide a secret. Beside him, his canine partner Riker was rigid, a silent statue of pure courage, staring at the ground as if he could see right through it. The sheriff had a choice: walk away, or open the door to a darkness that could swallow a man whole. There's a quiet strength that holds small towns together. It ain't found in city halls or in loud speeches. It's found in the heart of a man who knows the land, a man who understands that justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper in the pines, a feeling in your gut. It's the silent promise a good man makes to his family and to every family under his watch. I will stand in the gap. No shadow will grow here. This is a story about that promise. It's about a man, his dog, and the courage it took to leave the known road. It's about what happens when simple duty collides with a hidden evil, an evil that was watching, waiting, right under their feet. I'm glad you're here. Go ahead and let me know in the comments what town or city you're watching from. It's good to know we're not walking this road alone. Now stay right here till the end. Some stories deserve to be seen through, especially the ones where good people and their faithful partners stand up. Out here, the evening doesn't just fall, it settles. It settles like dust on an old Bible, slow and heavy. Sheriff Brody was guiding the cruiser down a familiar dirt road, the kind you've driven so many times you could do it with your eyes closed. The sun was bleeding out over the western ridge, painting the sky in shades of bruised purple and deep orange. It was the end of a long shift, the air still, holding the day's heat. It was the kind of quiet that feels earned, the kind of peace you fight for, the kind of peace that feels like honor. Beside him, Riker was quiet. Riker, his K9, wasn't just a partner. He was a presence. He was the silent promise that the sheriff wasn't alone out here. Most folks see these dogs as tools, but when you've shared this many silences, this many cold nights, tool isn't the right word. He's family. He's the sentinel, the watcher on the wall who doesn't need words to speak the truth. He understands duty. He understands the weight of the badge on the man next to him. And then it happened. Riker, who'd been resting his head, suddenly stood bolt upright. He let out a low whine, not of excitement, but of disturbance. Before Brody could even react, the dog was pulling, hard, toward the woods, off the marked trail. This wasn't their search zone. This wasn't procedure. This was instinct. Brody tapped the brakes, the gravel crunching. The dog's intensity, the sheer focused courage in his stance, signaled this was deadly serious. A man's path is supposed to be clear. He's supposed to follow the rules, the map, the law. But sometimes the law isn't written on paper. It's written on the heart. It takes courage to know when to leave the road. We're building a community here, walking this path together, trying to find the light in the shadows. If stories of courage, faith, and true justice touch your heart, join us, subscribe, and walk this road with us. Brody hesitated. Every minute he spent off route was a minute he wasn't where he was supposed to be. But Riker was insistent. The dog looked back at him, just once, his eyes clear and sharp in the fading light. It was a look that said, "The danger is this way. The justice we swore to uphold is this way." You don't ignore a look like that. Not from a partner who has saved your life twice before. He put the truck in park. He shouldn't. The logbook would be a mess. But honor isn't about clean logbooks. Honor is about answering the call, especially the one nobody else hears. He trusted Riker more than he trusted most men. The dog didn't know about politics. He didn't know about budgets. He only knew about right and wrong. He only knew the scent of evil. He grabbed his flashlight, even though the woods were still lit by the dying day. "All right, boy," he said, his voice low. Show me what you found." Riker didn't need to be told twice. He was through the brush in an instant, a black shadow moving with purpose. Brody followed, the leather of his duty belt creaking, the peace of the evening shattered. This wasn't a chase. Riker wasn't excited. This was different. This was a pull, a deep, moral gravity. The sheriff could feel the air change as they left the road. It got colder, quieter. The kind of quiet that means the woods are holding a secret. The kind of quiet that usually comes right before the thunder breaks. He thought about his own family back home. He thought about the warmth of his kitchen. It's that thought that gives a man the courage to walk into the cold. You protect your own. And in his job, everyone in this county was his own. He was the guardian. It was his duty to stand between them and the shadows. Riker was moving fast now, not running, but tracking with a focus that chilled the sheriff to the bone. This wasn't a rabbit. This wasn't a lost hiker. This was the scent of something broken, something that needed justice. Brody knew deep in his bones that this detour was meant to happen. You learn out here that the universe has a strange way of balancing the books. You can ignore the signs, you can stick to the map, you can clock out and go home. Or you can show the courage to follow the pull. You can choose to be the instrument of honor, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's dangerous. The brush got thicker. Thorns snagged at his uniform. Riker didn't slow down. The dog was pulling him deeper into a part of the woods the maps ignored, a place where the shadows were already pooling. The sheriff steadied his breath. He knew this feeling. It was the feeling of justice about to be served, whether the world was ready for it or not. The moment they stepped off that main road, a change rippled through the air. You know that feeling just before a storm hits? When the birds stop singing and the world seems to hold its breath? It was like that. The forest became unnervingly quiet. Riker, he kept pushing deeper, but his movements were different now, less of a pull, more of a stalk. He was low to the ground, all business, all focus. This wasn't a search anymore. It was a hunt. Riker kept checking back at his handler, a quick glance over his shoulder. It wasn't for reassurance, it was to urge him forward. That look, it's a heavy thing to receive from an animal. It's a transfer of courage. It says, what's coming is bad, but our honor demands we face it. We go together. Brody felt the weight of that pact. It was the same silent promise he'd made to his own family. I will come home, but first, I will do what's right. They pushed deeper, the undergrowth thick and grasping. The sheriff noticed things that didn't belong. Branches were broken, but not by weather. They were snapped, high up, pushed aside with force. He saw unusual tracks, not deer, not coyote. They were boot prints, heavy, but clumsy, like someone moving in a panic. Someone had been moving through this area recently, and they were moving fast. You spend enough time in the wild, you learn to read the silence. And this silence was screaming. It spoke of fear. It spoke of a violation. Brody knew in that gut-deep way a man learns after 20 years behind the badge that he was walking toward a hidden darkness. He was walking toward a place where justice had been forgotten. And it was his job, his sworn duty, to bring it back. His hand rested on the grip of his service weapon. Not to draw it. Not yet. It was a comfort. A reminder of the promise he'd made to uphold the law, to protect the innocent. But the real weapon in that moment was Riker. The dog was a living compass, pointing true north toward the scent of wrong. He was the embodiment of pure, uncomplicated courage. Brody saw a scrap of fabric snagged on a thorn bush. It was blue, bright blue, too bright for these woods. It looked like something a child would wear. A cold knot tightened in the sheriff's stomach. He thought of his own kids, safe at home. That's the fuel for honor, isn't it? The thought of your family. It's what makes a man brave enough to face the kind of evil that tears other families apart. Riker paused, testing the air. His nose was working overtime. Brody stopped with him, listening. Nothing. Just the pounding of his own heart, a steady drumbeat of duty. This was the moment of choice. The moment you decide if you're just a man with a badge, or if you're a shield for the weak. Brody adjusted his hat, a silent vow. Justice was coming to these woods. The tracks were clearer now, leading toward a dense thicket that seemed impassable. Whoever they were, they didn't want to be followed. But they didn't count on Riker. They didn't count on a partner whose loyalty wasn't bought. It was earned. A partner who operated on a code of honor cleaner than any man's. A sense of dread, cold and sharp, settled on the sheriff. This wasn't just someone lost. This was someone hiding. Or worse, someone being hidden. The air felt foul, tainted. The courage it took to take the next step was immense. But the thought of turning back, of leaving this shadow untouched, was simply not an option. He'd seen this before, not in these woods, but in the eyes of men who'd done terrible things. He'd seen the chaos they leave behind. He was the man who cleaned it up. He was the man who stood for the family that was broken, for the justice that was stolen. Riker moved forward, and Brody followed. The light was almost gone now, the woods sinking into deep, blue shadows. It's in the dark that true courage is tested. It's easy to be brave in the daylight, with the world watching. But out here, with only God and your dog as a witness, that's where your soul is measured. Riker stopped dead. He stood rigid, facing a wall of dense brush and fallen trees that looked like nothing, just a tangle of wilderness. But the dog was staring at it like it was a locked door. And he was waiting for the sheriff to turn the key. Riker didn't just point. He locked. His entire body went rigid, a statue of pure, focused instinct, staring at that dead-end tangle of brush. To Brody, it looked like nothing, just a place where the forest had given up. But a K9 sees the world in truths we can't. He sees the scent of deceit, the smell of disturbed earth, the lingering odor of fear. Riker knew what was under there, and he knew it was wrong. Brody put a hand on Riker's flank, a silent, "I'm with you." He stepped forward, pushing aside the thick, thorny branches. They scraped against his uniform, fighting him. This wasn't natural growth. This was placed. This was camouflage. Someone had spent a lot of time making this spot look like nowhere. And that's when you know, you've found somewhere. A place that justice was never meant to see. He pushed through the last layer of brush and stopped. His breath caught in his throat. It wasn't just woods. It was a clearing. A small, man-made hole in the world hidden by the overgrown canopy. It was maybe 30 feet across, the ground unnaturally flat. It felt wrong, sacred almost, in a terrible way, like a grave or a scar. This was a place built to hide a secret. This is the kind of discovery that tests a man's courage. It's one thing to chase a man in the open. It's another to stand at the edge of a hole in the ground, a place that smells of damp earth and lies. You think of your family. You think of the warm, lit world you left behind. And you find the strength to step into the dark, because honor doesn't give you a choice. In the center of the clearing, half buried under more netting and dead leaves, was a set of flat, wooden doors, like an old storm cellar. But this was no storm cellar. This was a bunker, a hidden cabin, the kind of thing you hear about in stories, the kind of place where evil goes to fester, far from the light. Riker went straight to it, sniffing at the padlock. Brody knelt by the lock. It was heavy. It was new. This wasn't some hunter's forgotten deer blind. This was active. This was now. He felt the cold steel. A man who builds a place like this. He's not just hiding from the world. He's hiding something from the world. He's hiding from men like Brody. He's hiding from justice. He looked back the way he came. He couldn't even see the path. They were deep. No one would stumble on this. No one. He was only here because Riker's courage had overruled his routine. He realized with a chill that he was completely alone out here. Just him, his dog, and whatever this hole in the ground was protecting. His radio felt a mile away. You don't call in the cavalry for a hunch. You don't light up the switchboard for a feeling. You have to be sure. But every part of him, every instinct honed by years of walking this county, was telling him this was it. This was the dark spot on the map he'd always felt but never found. This was a betrayal of the honor of his county. He examined the edges of the door. Fresh hinges. A thick rubber seal to keep the water out. This was sophisticated. This was planned. This was deliberate. This wasn't just hiding. This was an operation. His mind raced. What was he standing on? A weapons cache, a drug lab, a place to hide stolen goods. He knew he couldn't wait. He couldn't go back for a warrant. Justice delayed is justice denied. And whatever was down there, it was breathing the same air he was. It was a threat to the families he'd sworn to protect. He had to act. He had to show the courage to face what was inside. He used the butt of his heavy flashlight to check the wood. It was solid. He stood up, drew his weapon, and used his boot to test the padlock. It held fast. He'd have to breach it. He was moving on pure instinct now, the way Riker did. The world shrank. There was no sunset. There was no quiet evening. There was only this door. His pulse was spiking. It wasn't fear. It was anticipation. The cold, clear-headed adrenaline of justice about to be served. This was no ordinary find. This was the kind of discovery that changes a town, the kind of secret that, once unearthed, changes everything. And he was about to kick the door open. Brody didn't hesitate. Honor doesn't allow for hesitation when you're standing on a door like that. He used the tools he carried, and the heavy padlock snapped with a crack that sounded deafeningly loud in the silent woods. He pulled the thick doors open, revealing a dark hole and a set of steep concrete steps. A gust of stale, cold air rose to meet him, smelling of mildew, damp earth, and something else. Something metallic and wrong. Riker went first, a black shape descending into the dark, a pure vessel of courage. The sheriff followed, his heavy boots on the concrete. Down here, the silence was absolute. It was a buried, suffocating quiet. The beam of his flashlight cut through the blackness, finding a single bare bulb. He found the switch. The light flickered, buzzed, and then held, casting a sickly, weak glow over a small concrete room. This wasn't a cabin. This was a box, a tomb, built to hold secrets. It was immediately clear this was a place of long-term occupancy. Survival gear, neatly stacked, barrels of water, crates of rations, a cot, unmade. But this wasn't some lonely hermit. On a metal table sat advanced radio equipment, antennas and scanners, and pinned to the wall, maps. Maps of the county, covered in circles and lines. This wasn't just hiding. This was planning. This was an enemy. He stepped closer to the wall, and his blood ran cold. They were his maps, patrol routes, shift schedules, the names of his deputies. This was a violation. This was a snake not just in the grass but under the house. It's a chilling thing to see your own life, your own family in blue, laid out like a target. If you know that real justice means protecting the guardians, write "back the blue" in the comments. This changed the very nature of the ground he stood on. This wasn't a man hiding from the world. This was a man hunting the world, hunting him. He thought of his deputies, good men, driving those roads, believing they were the watchers, when all along they were being watched. A cold, quiet anger settled in his heart. The courage it took to stay calm, to not let the rage take over, was immense. He was about to reach for his radio when Riker, who had been methodically sweeping the room, stopped. The dog was fixated on the far wall, on another door. This one was solid steel built into the concrete, and it was secured with a heavy, cruel-looking slide bolt, locked from the outside. Riker didn't bark. He let out the low, pressurized whine that meant the scent was strong. It was the scent of living terror. A cot and maps, that's one kind of evil. A room locked from the outside, from within a hidden bunker. That is a different, deeper kind of darkness. That's the kind of thing that breaks a man's faith in the world. Brody's duty, his honor, his entire being, focused on that steel door. He didn't know what was behind it. He only knew it didn't deserve to be. He moved to it, holstering his weapon. This wasn't a moment for guns. This was a moment for liberation. He put his shoulder to it. It didn't budge. He checked the bolt. It was thick, solid. He put his boot near the handle. He was a man of courage, but what he felt now was a father's justice. He was opening that door. He was bringing the light. The first kick just echoed. The second one, with all his weight, all his anger. The steel bar bent. The third one, it snapped. The door flew open, slamming hard against the inner wall. His flashlight beam shot into the pitch-black space. He heard a gasp, a small, terrified whimper like a trapped animal. He swept the light into the corner, and his heart stopped. It wasn't a what, it was a who. Huddled in the corner, hands bound with zip ties, eyes wide and white with terror, was a boy, a teenage boy. Brody recognized him instantly. He was the missing kid from the flyers, the one who had vanished from his paper route 2 weeks ago. The family that was shattered, the prayers that had felt unanswered. "Son," Brody said, his voice rough with emotion. He kept his light off the boy's face. "I'm Sheriff Brody. You're safe now, you're safe." The boy just stared, shaking, unable to process the light, the uniform, the dog. Riker moved in slowly, gently, and nudged the boy's hand, a silent signal of comfort. Justice had finally arrived. Brody moved forward, cutting the ties. The kid was weak, dehydrated, but alive. He looked around the tiny, dark cell. A bucket, a single blanket. The sheer, calculated cruelty. This bunker wasn't built for survival. It was built to swallow a life. He had found the boy, but the monster who built this cage, the man who watched his family, he was still out there. The first call he made wasn't for backup. It was for an ambulance. His voice, when he used the radio, was calm, measured, devoid of the shock he felt. That's the first rule of honor in a crisis. You don't spread panic. You become the wall that the panic breaks against. He gave his location, or as close as he could guess, and then he requested full backup. He said he had found the missing boy. He said he had found the den. He helped the boy up those concrete steps, out of the dark and into the last fading purple light of the evening. The kid's legs were weak. Brody didn't carry him. He supported him. He let the boy walk on his own 2 feet, because justice isn't just about rescue. It's about giving back the strength that was stolen. He gave the kid his canteen. Riker sat at their feet, a silent guardian, his gaze fixed on the woods, watching for the monster's return. It felt like an eternity, but it was maybe 20 minutes. The first siren, then another. The woods lit up with red and blue lights, flashing through the trees, a chaotic, man-made dawn. Deputies, state troopers, medics. They came crashing through the brush, following the beam of his light. They found the clearing, and they stopped. They saw the bunker, they saw the boy, and they saw the look on the sheriff's face. The entire county, it felt like, descended on that small, hidden clearing. The medics wrapped the boy in a blanket, his family already on the phone, weeping, a prayer answered. Investigators, men Brody had known for 30 years, swarmed the scene. Their faces were hard. This wasn't a crime scene. This was a violation. This was an act of war against the peace of their home. The news spread the way wildfire does, from the radios, to the dispatches, to the coffee shop at dawn. The county was shaken. Deeply. People locked their doors. This was a place where people left keys in the ignition, where family meant your neighbors too. To find that a shadow this dark had been living right under their feet, it changes a place. It tests the courage of a whole community. But as the investigators pulled evidence from that hole, the maps, the radios, the chilling proof of a predator, Brody knew something they didn't. He knew the truth of it. He looked down at Riker, who was now sitting quietly by the cruiser, watching the men work. The dog hadn't needed a map. He hadn't needed a warrant or a theory. He just needed the truth. This kind of justice, it doesn't come from a computer. It doesn't come from a database. It comes from a place of instinct, a place of pure, unfiltered honor, the kind of courage that doesn't need to be spoken. It just needs to be followed. This dog had saved a life. He had uncovered a plot that could have destroyed more families. They called the sheriff a hero that night. They put his name in the papers. But Brody knew. He knew who the real hero was. It was the partner who didn't wear a badge, the one who operated on a code older than any law book, the one who had the courage to pull him off the known road and into the dark, simply because it was the right thing to do. That bunker was a stain on the land, a reminder that evil doesn't always advertise. Sometimes it digs in, sometimes it waits, and the discovery left a scar on the heart of the county. But it also left a lesson. It reminded people that justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it has 4 paws and a wet nose. They never would have found it. All the technology, all the manpower, all the overtime, and they would have been searching in the wrong place. The monster who built it was still out there. The hunt was just beginning. But the sheriff knew one thing for certain. Without his K-9's instincts, that boy would still be in the dark. It's a heavy thing to know that the line between a family being saved and a family being destroyed was held by the loyalty of a single animal. It makes you realize that the honor we search for in this life isn't always found in men. This whole county was breathing a little easier, but they were also looking over their shoulders. The immediate threat was gone, but the source of the evil, was now a ghost in the wind. And the sheriff, he had to go hunt that ghost. The woods are quiet again. The sirens are gone. The boy is safe with his family tonight. A prayer answered in the dark. That hidden bunker. It's just an empty hole now, a scar on the land, waiting for the rain to wash it clean. But the man who built it, the shadow that hunted this county, he's still out there. Justice was served for one, but the fight for the soul of this town, that's far from over. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? We live our lives on the marked trails. We follow the maps we're given. But what truths are we walking right past? What whispers of instinct do we ignore, just because it's easier to stay on the road? When your moment comes, when that feeling in your gut, that quiet voice of honor, tells you to turn into the woods, when courage demands you step into a darkness nobody else sees to protect a family you don't even know, will you stand for what's right? Will you stand, even if you have to stand alone? This world, it's a hard place, but it still belongs to the brave and the good. If you believe that, if you believe in the quiet strength of true justice, stay with us. Subscribe and walk this road alongside me. Light travels slow in a long, dark valley, but it always arrives. And when it does, every shadow trembles. May you never lose faith in the quiet strength of good people, and may you always find the courage to be one of them.